Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here, and today we find ourselves in a frantic orbital match of Coreball, which is played in a high-speed, constant forward movement in the Z-axis around a satellite. You'll be trying to score by maintaining possession of the ball at specific time checkpoints. You'll be grappling, pushing, hacking, and even bombing your way to victory, and you might even crash against or be pushed towards a meteorite. Coreball is the zero-gravity sport. It's for 1 to 4 players for ages 14 and up, takes 30 minutes per player to play, and is published by Burning Games. Now this is on Kickstarter right now, so I'm going to show you how the game works, and then I'll see you on the other side. This is a Kickstarter preview, so all of the components and art here is not necessarily final, and you'll want to check the Kickstarter page to see all the final art and components. At the beginning of the game, each player is going to select a faction. This is going to be made up of these flyers that are on miniatures, and all of the factions have a certain amount of flyers that are the same within those. But each faction will also have some flyers that are only specific to that faction. And here's a look at some of the miniatures specific for some of the other factions. And each of these flyers comes with their own card, which will have different skills that they can use throughout the game. They'll also have some different abilities they can use as well. And each player will have their reserve, which are the flyers that aren't yet on the board, and the different cards that correspond with each of those flyers. You'll also have a deck that you'll be using during confrontations, and you'll have your little score wheel here that will keep track of your score. Everyone starts with 5 points. So here we have the game set up for 2 players, and each of the 4 rounds that's played goes through 3 phases: substitution, activation, and resolution. Now the substitution phase you don't do in the first round because you already have your flyers out there, but in subsequent rounds you can bring in new flyers up to your maximum amount. Then you go into the activation phase where each player in turn order is going to be activating each of the flyers that are on the board. Now you're mainly going to gain points in this game by controlling or having the ball at the end of the round, or by wounding or eliminating your opponent's flyers, or by forcing them to go off the board. So let's say we're into the activation phase. Now interestingly enough, this faction chose their center, as you can see here, to start with the ball, and this player's center is right near there. Now in the activation phase you can move up to 2 spots, and you can perform actions. You can do those in any order. You know, action then move then action, or move 1, do an action, and then move again. In this case, it's going to move, and you can only move orthogonally. It's going to move into the same spot as that player. Now when you activate a flyer, you'll actually turn it 90 degrees so that you know it's been activated, because the round's going to end once everybody's been activated. But I'm going to keep it here just so you can see it easier on the camera. Now each of these flyers have a myriad of different skills. We'll go over each of them in a little bit, but their ball skill is 3. Now those ball skills can do different things, like you can pick up a ball if it's not with a current flyer, or you can try to steal it, you can defend it, you can pass it, things like that. In this case, this player's going to try to steal the ball from this one. In this case, they're both actually using the same flyer to do so, which makes this example pretty easy. Now when an action is performed, other players can possibly counter those depending on what's happening, but if something's happening directly to another flyer, that player must try to counter, and a confrontation ensues. Now in a confrontation, both players will have their own sort of play deck in front of them, and when they get ready for the confrontation, each player will just play the card that's there, and you'll look at the number and you'll add it to your specific flyer. In this case, again, they're both using the center flyer. So this would be 3 + 1. The active player has a total of 4 for the ball skill, and this player who is defending had a total of 6. So this player would actually successfully defend. So this would go in their discard pile. Now if the active player lost the actual confrontation like this, they actually get to keep this card face up in their area, and we'll give them an ability they can use at specific times. Like for example, a reaction. After playing the cards during confrontation, add +1 to your flyer's skill. So they could use that in a future turn. Now also, there's different abilities on the different flyers. And again, this was the defending flyer. This is defensive pass. Reaction: after successfully performing a defend counter with the center, which just happened, move the ball from this flyer to another flyer. This does not count as an action and cannot be confronted. So they can now move this ball to another flyer. So maybe they pass this ball way over to this player over here. And so this player would have put their flyer that they had just activated sideways so they know that it's been activated. That's how you keep track of the round. Then it would go to the other player's turn. Again, they can activate any of the flyers that they haven't yet used, and things would continue like that. And once each player has activated all their flyers, we go to the resolution phase. Now there's certain things that happen in this phase that have to do with things I haven't taught you yet, so I'm not going to go over all those, but mainly what's going to happen is you're going to score whoever has the ball. That player is going to get 3 points. And points are tracked on the little point tracker like this. It's just like a point wheel, and so this player would get 3 points, so they'd be up to 8. And speaking of points, other ways to change those is on your turn, you can actually move off the board from an edge and go back into your reserve. And then in that first phase of the next round, where your substitutions, you can bring in up to your maximum amount. Like for a 2 or 3 player game, up to an amount of 5 of them. And when you bring them in, they come in on the edge like that. However, when you do that, you come off, you actually lose a point if you do it within your own action. But if then another player forces you off the board, you actually lose 2 points. So in addition to gaining points for the ball, you'll lose points if you either go off the board on your own or you're forced off. So really we talked about the ball skills, but let's talk about some of these other ones. As you can see, the different flyers have different numbers for each of them. The next one is the push, and when you're in a square with somebody, you can essentially push them 1 square away. Again, sometimes pushing them off and causing them to lose 2 points. The next one is grappling. And if you're on the same square, you can't do this if you're a ball carrier, but you can try to grapple this if you're able to successfully do that. Now this player is essentially subdued, and when this player now, the grappler moves, it'll move them with them like this. And this player who is grappled now cannot do any movement or actions, but they can try to grapple to escape out of this. Now, when this player is being grappled, if they tried to counter the grapple, regardless of the outcome of that, they will get a tired token. Now, there's other effects in the game that cause flyers to be tired. And when they're tired, they cannot perform actions this turn, but they can still move. And after they're activated for that round, they would remove that tired token. The next is dodge, and dodging allows you essentially to try to escape a grapple or dodge a push from another flyer. The next one is hack. Now let's say this was the one being activated. They can hack any player anywhere on the circuit board. So let's say they wanted to actually hack this one. They put a hack token there. Now this player can still do actions, but they cannot move once they're hacked. They cannot perform a hacked action on their turn. However, once they're activated, afterwards they always remove 1 hack token, and you can have multiple hack tokens on a flyer. And the last one is firewall. Essentially, it's trying to counter a hack. Now I mentioned each round goes through the substitutions phase, activation phase. Once all of them are activated, you move to that resolution phase. And part of that phase is to actually put a new circuit in the board. So here, this would actually come out like this. This actually slides out because this is a raised sort of platform there. So this actually slides out and a new one slides in. So let's show you what a new board might look like. So now you see lots of different things on this specific circuit. There's different things like obstacles. These yellow obstacles here, those are kinetic barriers. Anytime a flyer moves through them, they must get a tired token. Remember, these ones are on the edge, so even if someone came in, they would need to get that tired token right there. Another one is a force field. Now, these are these red ones here, and when a flyer moves through there, they get wounded. Now, anytime a flyer gets wounded, you flip that flyer's card to the wounded side, which means basically their skills are going to be reduced. Anytime you get wounded, you actually would lose a point. That's one way to lose a point. And if this flyer gets wounded, again, they are eliminated from the game. They get put off the board. And again, if you get eliminated or wounded, you lose a point. Now these white ones with the directional arrows are called rail guns, and when a flyer moves through them, they're going to get a momentum token in the direction that this arrow is pointing. In this case, it's pointing to this side of the board, so it's going to get a momentum token like this. And these momentum tokens actually do different things. Let's say this flyer was here. At the end of the activation phase, when you go to the resolution phase, the first thing you do is the momentum section. And so what happens is this flyer would move in the direction of this. Now that can help because it can allow you to to move different spaces and get things planned, but it can also hurt you if you're moving in directions you're not expecting. For example, if this had a momentum token that matched this, it would have moved off the board, which they don't want because then they would lose points. So it's different ways for momentum to go. Now this will stay here and it will continue to resolve every round until it gets a momentum token that will cancel it out. For example, if it got one of these momentum tokens, the green ones, because these cancel out because of the opposite directions, they would cancel out like that. And there's actually open obstacles here, and so when someone moves through one of these and it's open, they get to place a railgun token in either of the 2 directions possible for that spot. Now there's different terrain as well. For example, if this flyer was here during the resolution phase, this flyer would receive a tired token for being on this specific spot. Where if you were on this one, you would actually get wounded, and the red shows you that. And there are plenty of different circuits. Remember, each of these get replaced in each of the 4 rounds of the game. So in a nutshell, that's the game, but also keep in mind there's plenty of different abilities on the different flyers, especially the ones that are specific for that faction. Some of them are happening instantly, like when another flyer declares a movement to the square. This one can hack it. Now, in addition to just this, the game can be played with 3 or 4 players. If you're playing with 4 players, you play in teams where there's going to be 4 different factions out there, and each of them take their points separately, but they add their points at the end of the game to see who wins. Well, there you have Coreball, and as you can see, great miniatures, interesting, unique mechanisms moving around the board with outside things influencing, but other people influencing what you do as well. If you'd like to see the full gamut of different pledge levels and all the final art and components, below me I have placed the link in this description of the video, and that will bring you directly to the project page, and I'm sure the fine folks at Burning Games would love your support.